entangled with independent ministries, in danger of darkness. The 14th century poet, Petrarch, was highly regarded as the greatest scholar of his age. Petrarch was well aware of the ignorance of his time. People today refer to his era as the Dark Ages because of a strangely prophetic statement from his writings. He observed, "My fate is to live among varied and confusing storms. But for you perhaps, if, as I hope and wish, you will live long after me, there will follow a better age. This sleep of forgetfulness will not last forever. When the darkness has been dispersed, our descendants can come again in the former pure radiance." The world today is a time of unprecedented light. Gabriel's promise to Daniel that knowledge would be increased has been fulfilled. With increased light, however, comes increased danger. People become complacent and confident in what they know. They quit hungering and studying for more. This state of spiritual laziness is perfectly described in the warning to the Laodiceans. "I will spew thee out of my mouth, because thou sayest, I am rich, and increased with goods, and have need of nothing, and knowest not that thou art wretched, and miserable, and poor, and blind, and naked." The arrogant assumption that one already knows all the truths necessary for salvation is the absolute worst spiritual darkness into which anyone can fall. This belief leads to another that is even more dangerous. This is the notion that since one already knows all the light needed for salvation, any new light is by default wrong. It is this spiritual arrogance that puts the last generation at such risk. It is a fact that we have the truth, and we must hold with tenacity to the positions that cannot be shaken, but we must not look with suspicion upon any new light which Yah may send, and say, "Really, we cannot see that we need any more light than the old truth which we have hitherto received, and in which we are settled." While we hold to this position, the testimony of the true witness applies to our cases its rebuke, "And knowest not that thou art wretched, and miserable, and poor, and blind, and naked." Those who feel rich and increased with goods and in need of nothing are in a condition of blindness as to their true condition before Yahuwah, and they know it not. As the churches have become more worldly and failed to advance in the truth, heaven has entrusted increased light to many different individuals who, in turn, have worked hard to share what they have been given. These independent ministries have done a wonderful work for Yahuwah in spreading the truth. As they have done a work the churches failed to do, many have suffered persecution by the organized denominations. The sad truth, however, is that most, if not all, of the independent ministries have themselves followed the example of the churches that persecuted them. Their reliance on the financial contributions of their followers has made them hesitate to accept new, unpopular truths. When advanced light has been brought to their attention, they have not only turned their backs on it, but they have used their influence to denounce it to their followers. The light entrusted to the various independent ministries has blessed many honest truth seekers. The problem arises when one becomes a follower of an organization rather than an independent truth seeker. If a person has a follower mentality, he is not truly following the Lamb whithersoever he goeth. Instead, he is following a human authority figure. Satan is delighted when people turn to other humans as their spiritual authority figures. He can thus use a few he controls to influence many others. Satan gets influential leaders to arrogantly denounce light entrusted to others by appealing to their spiritual pride. The danger of entangling with an organization that rejects advancing light is very real. This danger is precisely why the fourth angel in Revelation 18 orders, "Go out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues." This text is very important. It is typically mistranslated as "come out of her." However, to come is an invitation. It assumes that the organization issuing the invitation is somehow exempt and that one can safely join it. This could not be further from the truth. None are exempt from this divine order. It is an imperious command: go. Flee out of the midst of Babylon, and deliver every man his soul. Be not cut off in her iniquity, for this is the time of Yahuwah's vengeance. He will render unto her a recompense. A person who, in the past, has gained precious light from a church, group, or independent ministry is at risk of becoming entangled through a sense of loyalty or affection. Should the group reject advanced light, it is tempting to stay with the group rather than step free of it and follow truth wherever it leads. Do not be entrapped through displaced loyalty. Your loyalty is to Yah and Yah alone. Do not let the fear of having to worship alone keep you from stepping free from entangling associations. The lack of a group with whom to worship is no excuse to continue to align yourself with any organization or company that is actively rejecting light. It is not appropriate for any truth seeker to worship with any of the fallen churches that constitute Babylon. It is equally inappropriate for believers to entangle themselves with any independent ministry that has taken a bold, determined stance against truth. Even a single ray of light rejected is a warning sign, and most of the independent ministries have rejected several rays of light. Yahuwah's children today are called to stand alone, separate and independent of any organized ministry, group, or denomination. Do not give in to the temptation to follow the leadership of this independent ministry or that spiritual fellowship. It is perfectly natural to want to surround yourself with like-minded believers. It is affirming to worship with those who believe as you do. It is encouraging to read articles that agree with your current beliefs. However, the danger of becoming a follower of an independent ministry is exactly the same danger that exists with being a member of an organized denomination bound by a specific creed. When a leader you respect or an organization from which you have learned truth takes a stance against other truths, it is too easy to follow their example. Never take the word of another human for what is truth and reject other light without studying it out for yourself. Love for truth must take precedence over any desire to belong to a group. Satan uses the desire to belong to instill a fear of separation. This can silence the voice of the Spirit. The very nature of a group creates an us versus them dynamic. Members are taught to accept the beliefs of the majority. Worse still, they are taught to not question. Established organizations, whether they are churches or independent ministries, actively discourage truth-seeking that advances beyond their statement of beliefs. The leaders do not want their authority challenged. Religious leaders frequently seek to keep advanced light away from their followers because they fear loss of influence. This was graphically portrayed in a vision to Ellen White. I saw a number of companies that seemed to be bound together by cords. Many in these companies were in total darkness. Their eyes were directed downward to the earth, and there seemed to be no connection between them and Yahushua. But scattered through these different companies were persons whose countenances looked light and whose eyes were raised to heaven. Beams of light from Yahushua, like rays from the sun, were imparted to them. an angel bade me look carefully, and I saw an angel watching over every one of those who had a ray of light, while evil angels surrounded those who were in darkness. I heard the voice of an angel cry, "Fear Yahuwah, and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is come." A glorious light then rested down upon these companies, to enlighten all who would receive it. Some of those who were in darkness received the light and rejoiced. Others resisted the light from heaven, saying that it was sent to lead them astray. The light passed away from them, and they were left in darkness. Those who had received the light from Yahushua joyfully cherished the increase of precious light which was shed upon them. Their faces beamed with holy joy, while their gaze was directed upward to Yahushua with intense interest, and their voices were heard in the harmony with the voice of the angel, "Fear Yahuwah, and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is come." As they raised this cry, I saw those who were in darkness thrusting them with side and with shoulder. Then many who cherished the sacred light broke the cords which confined them and stood out, separated from those companies. As they were doing this, men belonging to the different companies and revered by them passed through, some with pleasing words, and others with wrathful looks and threatening gestures, and fastening the cords which were weakening. These men were constantly saying, "Yahuwah is with us. We stand in the light. We have the truth." I inquired who these men were, and was told that they were ministers and leading men who had rejected the light themselves and were unwilling that others should receive it. Then I heard a voice saying to those who had been pushed and derided, "Come out from among them, and touch not the unclean." In obedience to this voice, a large number broke the cords which bound them, and leaving the companies that were in darkness, joined those who had previously gained their freedom, and joyfully united their voices with them. I heard the voice of earnest, agonizing prayer from a few who still remained with the companies that were in darkness. The ministers and leading men were passing around in these different companies, fastening the cords more firmly. But still I heard this voice of earnest prayer. Then I saw those who had been praying reach out their hands for help toward the united company who were free, rejoicing in Yahuwah. The answer from them, as they earnestly looked to heaven and pointed upward, was, "Come out from among them and be separate." I saw individuals struggling for freedom, and at last they broke the cords that bound them. They resisted the efforts which were made to fasten the cords tighter, and refused to heed the repeated assertions, "Yahuwah is with us. We have the truth with us." Persons were continually leaving the companies that were in darkness and joining the free company, who appeared to be in an open field raised above the earth. Their gaze was directed upward. The glory of Yah rested upon them, and they joyfully shouted his praise. They were closely united and seemed to be wrapped in the light of heaven. Around this company were some who came under the influence of the light, but who were not particularly united to the company. All who cherished the light shed upon them were gazing upward with intense interest, and Yahushua looked upon them with sweet approbation. Those who persist in questioning are frequently shunned. If shunning does not force compliance, eventually they are expelled from the group. Conformance is thus enforced through emotional blackmail. If you have been expelled from a group, do not be discouraged. Certainly, you can continue to pray for friends and loved ones still deceived, but all of Yahuwah's heroes, all the spiritual giants of the past, have been called to stand alone. John the Baptist was a man of the solitudes and wastes of the desert. Alone he heard the Spirit speaking to his own soul, preparing him for a great work as the forerunner of the Messiah. John Bunyan spent 12 years in the Bedford County Jail for refusing to stay silent on the light given him. But during those 12 years, the Spirit of Yahuwah inspired him to write Pilgrim's Progress, a work containing deep spiritual truths that have blessed many in the centuries since he scratched it out in his cold stone cell. Martin Luther, likewise, was called to stand before priests and prelates, entrusted with a truth that would set free the souls of multitudes. Following truth is a very solitary walk. When called to stand alone, do not shrink back. Count yourself honored of heaven. Use the time alone to grow still closer and closer to the source of all light and truth. This side of heaven, it is impossible for any mortal intellect to grasp all truth. Throughout all eternity, the redeemed will be studying into the deep things of Yahuwah and continue to learn of him. World's Last Chance is a platform for disseminating all truth that has been revealed to us. This includes unpopular truths. Occasionally, angry responses come in where the writer declares, "I did not join WLC to accept this error or that error." This does not discourage us, nor does it dissuade us from spreading the truth far and wide. WLC is not trying to please man, only Yahuwah. Once light has been revealed to our understanding, we will disseminate it as far and wide as Yahuwah gives us the ability to do. Heaven today is commanding all to separate from every organization that does not accept all light. Wherefore come out from among them, and be ye separate, saith Yahuwah, and touch not the unclean thing, and I will receive you. There are fewer things more unclean than a spiritual pride that boasts in what one knows, but refuses to acknowledge any additional light. When we acknowledge that the true witness knows our condition better than we ever could, he will give us his righteousness to cover our nakedness, his purity for our sinfulness, and the heavenly gold of faith. Then will be fulfilled his precious promise. Behold, the days come, saith Yahuwah, that I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah. Not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers, but this shall be the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel. After those days, saith Yahuwah, I will put my law in their inward parts, and write it in their hearts, and I will be their El, and they shall be my people. And they shall teach no more every man his neighbor, and every man his brother, saying, Know Yahuwah, for they shall all know me, from the least of them unto the greatest of them, saith Yahuwah. For I will forgive their iniquity, and I will remember their sin no more.